Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody. We wanted to do something a little bit different this year. So what are we doing right here? This is our year in review with the elder team. I think this is probably the first time all 5 of us have been together in one spot since the ordination of these 2 fine gentlemen.
On camera, that is.
On camera. That's
we've never gotten together.
That's a good way to say it. I've never even seen you guys.
Who are you guys?
Man, what is your name again? But what we want to do is just have a little bit of fun. Hopefully you guys get to know us a little bit more, talk about many things that happened throughout this year that we can celebrate. And what's cool, I think, about this is we have 5 elders, and we were just goofing around before the cameras were rolling, or maybe they were. And we have 5 complete different personalities here, right? So it's which brings for fun times, crazy talks. But in all reality, I think it helps us balance each other out when we're talking about real life issues and things going on in the church, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's
okay.
a blast. It's a blast.
So today we're going to talk about some things. I have to kick it off because it's Christmas with some fun stuff. Our good friend Steve Mitchell claims that, I got to call you out from the get-go, he likes the Grinch, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Jim Carrey version, and Wes and I kind of mocked this on the
can't believe
Encore.
you're calling me out on it.
Yeah, so we're going to call you out on it. I think it's one of the worst Christmas movies ever filmed. What do you guys think about the Grinch before Steve defends himself?
It's the best Christmas
the Jim
movie.
The Jim Carrey movie?
The Jim Carrey one.
Kurt, there's a lot of wisdom on this stage.
You just blew my mind.
It's great.
I'm out on all things Grinch. Doesn't really matter if it's Jim Carrey or
You just don't like it.
Okay.
Yeah, or the cartoon or the new hip hop version of it.
No, the new hip hop one. Jim
Listen,
Carrey's a good
I
one.
never
Listen,
seen
this
that.
is a true story, and it was not in prep for this today.
Okay.
Last night, Aaron and the other kids were gone. I was home alone with Joelle. She's 6. And I felt like, I'll do whatever she wants to do and spend alone time with her. And I'm like,
Be a
what
good
do you
dad
want?
for once. Yeah.
What do you want to do? Be a dad for once. What do you want to do? How old are you anyway? What's your name?
What's your name, Susan?
And I go, what do you want to do, Joe? And she's like, I want to watch The Grinch. And I felt something die in my soul. And I'm like, oh, okay. Which one? So she can search the menu.
Yeah.
Which thing? And I'm like, I'll watch whatever Christmas movie you want. So she picks the Jim Carrey Grinch.
Nice.
Of any movie ever. That's the one she picked. And I thought, okay, I'm going to sit down and watch this. Because I couldn't go do something else because then I feel like I'm blowing her off. So I had to sit there through this. So we start watching it. Now, me and you have said the Polar Express is worse.
Yeah, and I do have one worse movie that came out. I'll bring up in a
Okay, we're wrong. Because I started watching it. I watched about 45 minutes of it, and I'll explain why it ended. It's worse than the Polar Express by 50 miles. And the Polar Express is one of the worst movies ever made.
Yeah.
And I was watching The Grinch. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I am dying emotionally and mentally right now. And Joelle is sitting next to me and goes, Dad, I want to turn this off. I go, oh, okay, well, we can do whatever you want. You want to have cookies? Like, what do you want to do? And I bought her out of watching it. But I decided, I think it's the worst Christmas movie I've ever seen.
What are you looking for?
Coherency, plot, any kind of humor. It's so horrible. It's horrible.
Goodness.
Is it one of your favorites, Steve?
I think it's one of my favorites. Now, there's not a lot to choose from, but what they put together inside of a snowflake is
snowflake.
Right, is just short of incredible.
I just can't.
It's humorous.
I would like to understand what point you find anything funny in that movie. I'm insulted.
There just might
by
be
it.
some stuff that went over your head, is all.
Okay, that's probably it. I'm just a flatlined. I'm missing everything. What's worse than that? What do you got?
I do have one that's worse than that, and it is by the same actor, Jim Carrey. Christmas Carol. This is
I wouldn't even watch
literally
that.
unwatchable.
I haven't seen it.
I challenge you to get
I
through
haven't
10
seen
minutes
it,
of that
but
thing.
Polar Express is terrible. I hate
Okay.
it.
Oh,
Okay.
it's awful.
What do you think of Polar Express?
I didn't really watch it. I mean, I know I've seen parts of it.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't.
It's good cinematography or good
Yeah.
kind of animation,
And
but I can't follow it.
I know I'm a Tom Hanks guy.
there's nothing
He's
to
one
follow.
of my.
Everybody's a Tom Hanks guy.
I'm just saying I've seen almost every one of his.
Yeah,
films.
that's when you know something's bad.
Yeah.
Hanks
Yeah, right.
can't make it go.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, this is really bad.
Quickly,
Oh,
best
boy.
Christmas movie, and then we'll move on.
Home Alone.
Home Alone. Okay.
Oh,
Home Alone
man.
1. That is.
I don't know. Home Alone 1?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
No, I don't know. Grinch.
Jim Carrey?
We'll help out Steve.
Right.
Wes just blew your life up. Said it's absolute.
He's
ignorance.
blowing
You
my
just have to
mind.
develop to a
But-
little bit of the gray hair on the stage is all.
But it's between the two, the original and the.
Okay.
There's not a lot to choose from, to
the
be
original's
honest.
a
Like really
third of the
good,
length, too.
solid holiday cinema.
You don't like Christmas movies, it sounds like.
Not a whole lot.
That's I can't talk about this all day, but that's not
All right.
entirely true.
Home
There's
Alone
a
1 and 2.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Christmas Story.
Christmas Story.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Really?
I don't have a favorite, but I like Christmas Story. I like the Grinch, Jim Carrey version. Home Alone,
Eh.
I'm there. I'm
Yeah,
there.
good for you guys. All right. All right, let's get into this. So, one of the reasons we wanted to do this forum, as we're doing right here, is because we actually had some reviews come in from a lot of people that serve with us and had talked about we just would like more communication. There's a lot of questions that we get. So, part of this is our way of trying to communicate as best we can. But, of course, we're not going to be able to say everything, answer everything. I always want to say that, me personally, I welcome emails. I was sure these guys would say the same thing. I know we don't see each other as often as we used to because of our circumstances, but fire emails, questions at us all the time. But this is a part of our communication. And so I want to talk about ministry health just overall on the year. One of the things that we do on a semi-regular basis when we sit as elders is we're constantly trying to evaluate the health of our church. How are people doing? How are the spirits? What are some of the complaints and things like that, and things that we want to concern ourselves with? Obviously, because we care for the people here, we want to shepherd the people. So we're going to start just kind of with the family ministry a little bit.
Yeah.
So for you, it was a unique year, but there's a lot of things, Pastor Brian, that you could celebrate from the family ministry side of things.
Yeah, we've through the years we've seen the family ministry grow and develop into something. And with that and growth of people and families being here, there's just a need to, one, grow the size of the team, as well as develop what the ministry is. And so this last year, even before the COVID scenario, we were having the opportunity to develop a family ministry, including now parenting, and actually bringing on a staff hire of Michael Fitzgerald being the new youth director. And so we've seen a lot of growth there, as well as, like, because of COVID, we've had to develop things like Coffee and the Word for parents, as well as Teen Talk for the teenagers, because we need to engage with online content. We've also been able to develop the kids' 9:45 Wake Up and Worship into the app. We never had that before because of that. So there's been a lot that's happened in the family ministry.
Didn't Michael start like on day one of COVID or something? Like the first day of shutdown was his
Yeah,
first
it
day?
was the shutdown day.
Yeah.
We had a staff meeting that Michael was a part of, literally getting introduced, and we were like, "Oh, by the way, this is the last day we can meet together for how long?
Welcome
we
aboard.
know how long that was going to
Yeah.
be, but still going on."
I think
So-
TGIF was a great success. Why we
Right.
could have it? It was
Right, yeah.
It was fun to teach the kids, and it was
Yeah,
it was
Christine
great.
actually came up with that idea, just looking at the needs of parents and the fact that a lot of parents were going to be homeschooling kids, at least all the way through October, and so we created TJAF, which was just a break for parents to
was
bring their
awesome.
kids. Yeah. And then Michael's come up with a lot of great ideas for the youth ministry, getting them involved in the community, serving through leaf cleanup and food handouts. And there's been a lot of incredible ministry that's happened through the family ministry this year.
Yeah, and I do want to mention, too, with part of that, we had some new staff. We mentioned Michael. Todd's on the other side of this. He's been a part of our marriage ministry for a while, but he's on the other side of this right here doing camera work. And what a year to step into it, for him, too. And so we're grateful to have our new staff, as well as Angela Begard, who's a huge help to all of us. And I think it's been a cool thing to see those new staff come on. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those.
Well, yeah,
those
Todd's
groups.
doing a great job, and he came to be overworked.
He did.
Right.
He did. I
Right.
know. Awesome. Any other thoughts from you guys on specific ministries? I know every one of us are kind of part of different individual ministries here, and so for you guys, maybe something to celebrate for this year. Steve, I know you did a lot of different things with the men's ministry, kind of forced to, but maybe some cool things for you that came out of that.
Well, we certainly had to get creative,
Yeah.
and that's certainly presented its own challenges, and I do think it does speak to some of the new people that were brought on staff with Todd to help enable that, along with everything else electronic ministry, right? So a couple events that we did have face-to-face were well attended, and I think people were excited to go face-to-face. And I do think we got a little bit more, intimate with each other as men face-to-face. We kind of shortened up our teachings this year because I think people were just, quite frankly, sick of looking at screens.
Yeah.
And so we tried to set up the round tables where people would talk, and we would minimize our one-way teaching on the screen and really foster dialogue and conversation. And I'm thankful for a real handful of faithful men that serve that we can hand that responsibility off to facilitate discussion and make sure it stays on the rails, so we can keep the teaching short and pointed and let the meat and potatoes kind of happen at the table. So that was that was something that I think we'll even carry forward into when things go back to normal, if there is such a thing.
Right.
The new normal.
The new
Yeah,
normal.
the new normal, right? Yeah. How about for you, Kurt? I know you do a lot of serving kind of behind the scenes here too. Maybe not everybody knows that, but you do buildings and maintenance and ground
It's
here.
really cool. Like we got, I don't know if I want to mention names, but we got like 3 guys that are just here every week.
Mm-hmm.
And they're painting, they're doing ceiling tiles, mowing the grass. I hardly ever do that, and I love to do that. Sometimes I just do it because I want to, but we got a guy that does that all the time. I can think of the one rake day across the street. There was like tons of people there. I was sick through that, or I couldn't be there. But everybody got together. Michael did a great job getting all the hydro seed, and everything was well organized.
Yeah, we had everything from kids all the way up to seniors there.
We had to get lots and lots of rakes. I can think of just a couple days ago that we just put up all the Christmas lights. There was volunteers that came. It wasn't a lot, but there was enough to do the job. So, and people love to do that. I mean, they're having fun.
Right.
Yeah.
They love to do it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, cool. And I know we're not going to always be able to mention everybody, but there's so many other ministries that had to kind of change their ways and to step up this year into just to make things happen. With the ladies ministry, the marriage ministry, I mentioned Todd behind the cameras. He's running that. Griefshare is one that's been great for us too, and they've adapted really well, doing different Zoom things, and an awesome ministry. And we've gotten to see, sometimes we don't always see it up front. We got to see some baptisms and things come through the fruition of that stuff. So that was really cool. But I want to transition into overall church ministry, which Wes will speak a little bit more on. So during our elder meetings, we started in March, I think it was April, maybe February, started to talk about what Easter's going to look like, right? And make these big plans. And of course, the whole world changed for us, and we had to learn to adapt. So talk a little bit about Easter from your end, kind of what we were planning on, how the excitement changed, and then what God did through that.
Yeah, we had a mega plan, Lasco Ford parking lot. They were going to work with us on that. That was really cool of them. They were going to clear the used car lot completely, help us have shuttle drivers and stuff to transfer people. We were going to put up a monster tent, right on Owen Road, and invite the community in to hear the gospel. We were going to preach the gospel, and it was really exciting. Told the church about it. Everybody cheered. Had lots of thoughts to go around that, and no sooner did we announce it than things started to become clear that wasn't going to be possible.
Yeah.
And so we pulled the plug on that, but that. Then you just start thinking, well, are we just going to accept this? Like, are we just going to not, are we just going to sit and do nothing until we can do something? And the answer was no. And so it opened a great door that is still alive today, including sitting on this set right now.
Right.
To present the gospel on television. We were, as well as online like we were going to, but we were like, well, man, what if we never have thought about that before. You just don't think about TV anymore. It seems like it's almost like a thing of the past. But then this whole thing brought it back around to everyone's just sitting home.
I think
So
it points too to the fact, like what Steve said and we said, like we all had to think outside the box
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
year and do things ways we never imagined before.
Ever. Like,
and it brought us to new frontiers.
yeah, like I can do tents and parking lots. Like that's become familiar, and I love doing it, and I want to do it again. But like I was like, you know, so we did a TV broadcast that was on Easter Sunday. It was watched by a lot of people. We had a very encouraging response to the gospel that reached back out to us with the number we put on the screen. And that turned into a 9-week broadcast where we did a half-hour broadcast every Sunday for 9 weeks. And we're still doing it, Scott.
I know.
Doing it. We are.
But it generated some, I think, more intimate church gatherings, right? We had that season of watch parties at people's house when things started to open back up a little bit. The TV was, back in the dark days of COVID. And I'll say, from the outside looking in, not to just, attaboy type of thing, but I when we came in and just the world itself, what an easy opportunity to just check out.
Yeah.
And nobody was gonna. At some point, you got to do something, right? But I was really, again, not being on staff and just, what are we gonna do here? And just the stick-to-itiveness or the drive to press into it was really something. I commend you guys. I commend the staff just to think outside the box and just charter and get the machete out and just blaze a trail, right? And so that was really inspiring that I saw, just kind of being part of it from a periphery and being in the meetings here and there. I thought the team did a great job and continues to do so. I was inspired personally by it.
I'm glad to hear that.
I think it's a good point that you make too, because we were watching billion-dollar industries just be like, we're done. We're going to do nothing, and we have awesome staff. And Neil kind of headed a lot of this up with some of his ideas of different things that we could do online. And it's been really cool. And most likely we're reaching people that we never would have been able to reach if we were just here in Fenton too. So I think it's been cool.
I thought it was like truly amazing that God opened those doors. I mean, we prayed about it, and then the doors were open, which it had to be a God thing, because all of a sudden it seemed a lot easier than it should have been.
I agree. It still does.
Yeah,
It still
these
does.
people were like, okay, let's do it.
I know it. We're sitting on a set that's going to be a gospel Christmas Day broadcast, and
And there were
I don't know how it's possible.
There were things along the way too that were like, why haven't we been doing this all along?
I know that.
Right.
We're like,
And it'll carry into the new normal, like you
Oh,
say.
yeah, we've learned.
And it's hard to do and navigate the whole thing, but even because we know there's some people out there in the church that feel left behind, or that feel, that aren't necessarily as proactive on things. And how do we, I know that there was a series of phone calls made, or a series of, hey, let's go through the roster of people we know to just reach out to people, see if there's practical needs. While we did some of that, how do we continue to keep a finger on the pulse of the health of the ministry? And not that we nailed it, but at all, but trying to do some things, and that's something that we still need to continue to, as an elder team, to try to really focus on the health of the body,
And that was stuff that we talked about often, and I want to give you credit for that, Steve, too, because you were a big pusher on understanding that too, going like, listen, we don't necessarily hit home runs on this all the time, but we have to be concerned for the people, and certainly there are people that are going to be disappointed or felt neglected, and we are sorry for that, but it isn't without effort and prayer and concern, and I just wanted to kind of mention you on that because you were a big pusher for that, about how we can kind of see different things. So you kind of mentioned this, but we're going to go into this too. Some more big ministry stuff that we did that turned into the Shoreline Tour.
Oh my heavens!
And I guess I don't even remember what the brainchild of that was, or how it came up. But in a time and place of going, it felt like the world was opening back up a little bit, so we were trying to be cautious outdoors. You kind of go into that a little bit of how that came about.
Well, we had an original plan back in March. We had set the most aggressive foreign ministry gospel effort that we have ever had across the entire island of Cuba in partnership with numerous churches in numerous towns. And we were going to go across, up and down and across Cuba for like 2 weeks, 10 days.
Yeah.
Over and over, night after night after night, partnering with the local church and bringing the gospel to their communities. None of that happened, and it was incredibly discouraging to get that information, to just come to that realization. We came to it before
But we
Cuba.
tried to make it happen.
Yeah,
though. Even once COVID started, we were like, we could still do this.
It was the last.
Right.
It was a buzzer. It was this depressing. Like, okay, well, this is how America's going to handle it. Let's go down to Cuba and throw down. And then we started to see like, it's not going to happen. And even Cuba was saying, "Come, no,
You guys
don't."
were like 2 days out from leaving.
2 days. It was like, what was it? 2 days.
Yeah,
And it was like, let's go. We're going. And then, a few people realized, and some of our team started dropping out of the trip. They're like, I know you guys are going. We're not going to go because we don't want to get stuck in Cuba. I got little kids at home, and I think it's going to get locked down while we're there, and then you can't come back and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm going. And then Cuba finally conceded. Our contacts there were like, look, I think you guys are right. I don't think it's going to happen. So it didn't happen. Getting to the shoreline, as some time went by, you just think, man, how do we reach people? We did the Easter thing. We did the broadcast. We started trying to figure out how to care for the church. Still trying to figure that out, as best we can to not let people get lost and to bring them along, And it was like, you just think things. I just think about this stuff all the time. It dominates my mind and conversations. I talk with Neil about it to death sometimes, and you guys. And it just, honestly, there were a lot of details and people involved, but I woke up in the night one time, and I thought, why don't we just go around the entire shoreline of Michigan and preach in every state park to whoever's there? And just, like, who cares? Like, maybe there's nobody there. Like, at least we feel like we're showing God, we'll step forward. If you want to do anything with it, that's up to the Lord. But here we are, and I'm going to put the effort on the altar. And so we made this little map, just, being stupid. Like, it's still just a fictional idea. Like, and I made all these little circles. And, like, we start over here on the west side and go all the way up around under the Mackinac Bridge, come down. I showed it to Neil. I'm like, what would happen? Like, how would we get permission in all these places? Because I just, like, want an idea. I don't want to go get permission. I don't want to do any of that work. So I'm like, dude, so how do we get here in the COVID? Like, how do we assemble?
What you meant was, Neil, go figure this out.
Could you figure this out?
I need you to do this.
I proposed to you this. And so he showed me, this is a true. I showed him a map. I made it with Aaron on my own. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a real headache for somebody. It's darn sure not going to be me, but it's going to be somebody. But this looks really exciting. And I went to Neil, and he had made the exact same map, Scott.
Really?
On his own.
I never heard this story.
No, yes.
On his hand.
I showed
On
him,
the hand,
I'm like,
right?
here's what I'm thinking, dude. And we had talked about what if we did a Michigan tour for the gospel. So it wasn't like it was out of thin air. But I'm like, yeah, we could go around Michigan or something. And I made this thing, and I was at home with Aaron by myself, and I did it. And
Was Aaron with you, or were you by yourself? I don't know what happened.
Confused.
I'm saying there was he wasn't there, guys. So I lay this thing down. I'm like, what do you think about this? And he's like, I like it. It had the same deal. It was the same map. It was like, there might have been one or two additional towns, but it was the exact same concept without ever having talked about it. Credit to him. He went around and got permission in as many places as possible, and we started on the west side and preached the gospel. And it was one of the, I'm going to say, it was one of the greatest gospel mission things that has ever happened. Ever. I'm talking India, Africa, Cuba, Haiti, ever happened. I wish I was still on the tour preaching the gospel.
What do you base it off of when you say, like, better than India or Haiti?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
It
now it
just
makes you
felt right. Like, not that those don't. They
Yeah.
surely did. But it felt like, America has a vibe of when there's not a crisis, people don't need the gospel in their minds.
That's,
right?
yeah.
They do need it, but they don't realize their need for it. And so, so you try. Like, you go like nobody cares. We're overscheduled. We're over entertained. It's hard to compete with that. You go to a village in Africa, you're the only thing happening. Like, who are these people? And 2,000 people come and listen. Like, tell me, my aunt's in my house going to die. My kid has some tumor on his, like, what is Jesus the answer? Like, what's real? And so they come and listen. America has had a cloud settle over it. All the idols fell down. The foundation of sand has been exposed. And people were ready to listen. And that was something. Like, there was no language barrier. There was no cultural barrier. I'm from Michigan. I speak English. We're all I'm affected by this. You're affected by this. And here we all are. And we don't know what's going to happen. So people were ready to hear it. And I was excited to say it.
Just showing up on the tour myself, the team that was with you on that, like, they were go-getters. They were on it. Their heart was in the right place. It was cool to see that aspect. And I only got to see the very end.
Right.
So if anything was going to be the worst, like, they'd be exhausted, burnt out, and done. And, it's pitch dark, and they're tearing down, laughing, mucking it up, having some fun, like, knowing the whole point. And then just watching even other people, like, we had a 11th grade guy that was on the trip with you the whole time.
Yeah.
And some guy corners him in the last place, asking him about the gospel.
Yeah.
And he didn't know what to say, but he just did it,
Never done it in his life.
Right.
Not like that.
And then we got to sit and talk about it after, and how, just...
He was shook. Like, he was like, whoa.
He was there to run a camera and run chords,
Yeah.
and he ended up sharing the gospel with a guy, which was just
There were
so cool to
people
see.
in Mackinac City that were stopping me in tears. We heard about this on the radio or something. We did a bunch of stuff to tell people about it, and they said we drove across Facebook is what it was. We were here tonight. We drove across the Mackinac Bridge, brought my family, and they were wrecked by the Lord. It was incredible, man. Yeah. And like he says, and going to Steve's point, to bring that was the other thing is how many people were servants like that were. I was going to say 30 or 40. You can't take 40 people to South Africa.
Right.
But it was good. We just put it out there to the church, and and it was something that was so easy to bring people along.
Yeah,
like,
in
let's
your own
all
home
do this
state,
as the church together. And it grew people and challenged people, and we bonded as a body on the way to reaching the lost. So it wasn't just, there's no other way you can do that. You have to, when you travel and spend money and take time away, it's different. It's just, I still want to do all that, Cuba and whatever. But it just really felt like it was us going out and trying to blaze a trail. And I felt like the Lord was in it, man, over the weather and everything. There were a bunch of crazy stories, but it was incredible.
Yeah, and I like how, like, in your own home state, it kind of gives people an opportunity to go. Maybe I can go to this city, but I can't. Like you said, you're not going to take 40 people to Zambia or something like that, but you can kind of split that up. So,
well, and that's the point. You had different people at each place.
At each place,
people would show up to a location.
Yeah, they'd trade out. Like, hey, and then some people went home and took care of some stuff, and then came back and caught us on the next town. It was unbelievable, man.
Yeah. Really
Didn't
cool.
you like go through the town like the day before or the day of and like hand out cards like these 40 people
We
were?
did,
By the hundreds.
Yeah.
They brought their kids along.
So there was like, there
Aaron
was a
and
lot
I-
of work
Yeah.
getting up to that.
We
you
have
know,
people that
inviting people and
we have people that have served with us on Haiti and Africa trips that are not a part of this church. They've come from Minnesota. They drove across from Minnesota with their kids to be a part of it, and went for 2 or 3 towns with us and went back. It was unbelievable. Like, people were like, oh my word, we're going to do it. Because they had nothing going. There was nothing going in the whole country at that time. Right. And they're like, man, we want to serve. We want our kids to serve. And
that was part of the thought too, was, camping was huge this summer for a lot of people just because of our scenario, and just being in those locations, being in those areas where people might be on vacation up camping, and being around and being able to invite them, and they're not doing anything, so come hear the gospel and hear some music.
And they did, man.
Yeah.
We pounded campgrounds with invitations. I'd love to do something like that again.
It would be cool.
For any reason.
Yeah. So, week to week, every couple of weeks, whatever, we're meeting, and with everything going on, we're trying to figure out, can we gather again? When can we come back? Trying to put out dates. I don't know how many fake dates we threw out on the calendar. Go, how about by this date? We just never knew, right? But we were always trying to pray and plan and things like that. So out of all of that came the watch parties. Which we kind of ended up changing the name, but what it was we were asking people. I'll let you explain it,
What
or
do
you
we
guys.
call it? What do we call it?
Well, we started we started with watch party because it was only
Watch party.
just house to house. Yeah, okay, but it started with like
maybe we need a
just
better name.
watch online at home, and then you were like, you know what? Why don't we just go and preach there? Why don't we do our service there? So
I remember Wes saying, "You guys might think this is a crazy idea," and he like pitched us, and we were all like, "No, that sounds like a great idea." You know?
I was nervous. I'm
Yeah,
I said I'm gonna get laughed out of here on this one,
But yeah,
and we had a few technical difficulties, but the Shoreline Tour was cool. But I don't know if the watch party thing, I keep calling it a watch party, whatever it was called.
Yeah, whatever.
It was one of my favorite things of the year, just because
agree with this.
there was just an angst to be with people again, and by that time, you had felt it. And you know, it was hard because there's other churches in town that were meeting, and we were blessed to have a decent sized church, and those rules didn't always apply to us, and so we were just trying to be honoring and be like, how can we do this with being honoring and all that. So I don't know if you guys have anything to say about those things. I thought they were really fun. If there's something you guys wanted to add to that.
I think they were really good to be a part of, and then I've even seen other churches and some try and continue it, you know, around. Like it's another way to do ministry. Like I said earlier, is we've been challenged to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And being in a large church, that's not a context for everyone, but you can reach your neighbors and things by just hosting a watch party.
Right.
The watch party idea actually started years ago, and Neil Thompson came up with the idea of doing it while you're at a campground. You know, you go up north for the weekend, invite all your little camping buddies around on Sunday morning and watch the live stream that already exists. And so it got brought into that context, you know. But it's something that could exist every single week.
sure it could. It should in some ways.
It should in some way, yeah.
Because part of the motivation for all of us, I think, when we were talking, is that is the church. Like it was like, you know, I think I was trying to break out of the paradigm that if we're not here, then we're not at church. Like the people, you know, think that.
Church isn't shut down.
Yeah, the church doesn't
you
shut
said the words.
down. Like, and it was like, the church is not shut down. That's not a thing. That's impossible. Or the church isn't real. And so what do they do in the Bible? And it's like, why can't we do that? You know, and why can't we still do that? We can.
Right. Yeah, that was cool. So one of the other things that we talk about often is trying to come to unity on theological discussions. So for the church, we get a lot of phone calls and emails. What is the church's stance on this? You know, what do you guys believe about this? And there are certain things that, you know, we could just give a hard and fast answer on, and there's certain things that we can't, that five of us may have different opinions on. And so we want to talk through those and be able to give wise biblical counsel for that. And while the conversation is ongoing with many of these things, there was really two that we kind of came to an answer on this year and executed in some way. And so I'm going to have Steve talk on the music side of it. Our worship leader, Lindsay, came to us with a question, so I'll have you jump into that.
Yeah, and those are some of the day-to-day operations that you guys, especially being on staff, have to, you know, to deal with. The greater question is, you know, theologically on some items, where do we stand on certain things? There's you can go to our website, of course, and look at our beliefs, and these are what we would call essentials. But there are a lot of non-essentials that we need to at least address, and we've got our arms around a few of them, at least at this point, and there's a whole there are many that we still need to tackle ahead of us, and these are harder than you would think to actually work through, because, you know, you may have a crystal answer, and then Brian might bring up something else and say, well, I haven't thought about it that way, and we have to look at a lot of these things. And so music, you know, being one of them that we were able to discern and put a bow on and say, hey, here's our kind of position on what music ought to be played and ought not to be played, even more importantly, in our gatherings and other, you know, just areas. And
this came from Lindsay.
Yes. Right? So Lindsay, through a conviction or just an ongoing concern as to,
she had multiple questions from people about certain artists and things.
Yeah, and it could even just be conversation like, hey, what makes you play a certain song on a certain day? And obviously she's, you know, and it's funny how God works, because even the few times I'll be able to preach now and then, and I'm not necessarily sharing exactly what the message is, but the Lord puts it together, because the worship complements the message, and the message complements the worship, and that type of thing. So she's just an ongoing conviction of, should I be playing this song? Or, you know, it's written by such and such, and maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. And while the song itself might be okay, the greater message behind it, or the ministry behind it that puts it out, doesn't necessarily agree with things we agree with. And those are all real complicated items to work through, and it's got a lot of hair on it. So it took us several sessions to really work through that and come to a position around what we should and shouldn't do. And really where it landed was, I think the most difficult part was, well, if we're looking for the artist or the composer of that song, they have to be really perfect and holy, or else we're not going to play it. Well, we wouldn't be playing any music.
Right, you can't,
right?
yeah, you
So
can't
it's
do
like,
anything,
I think we even talked about the guy that wrote Amazing Grace. What a beautiful song. And, his story or whatever, that's older and behind us a little bit. But if we're looking for perfection, we wouldn't be playing anything. So where it ultimately landed was, if there's if it's a current ministry, something that's current and active out there that you could click on or point to today, and if we felt that ministry might be preaching a different gospel, out of Corinthians, out
or
of
the
Galatians,
lack of the gospel
or the
being
lack of the gospel itself, or maybe a different gospel, a non-repentant gospel, or this word of faith movement, all these things, right? If somebody could, oh, that's a really beautiful song, I really liked it, who's the artist? And you would go click on it and find out, because we have to, for copyright reasons and whatnot, we have to put the name of the
credit
artist.
them, yeah.
And actually, a little bit of funding goes to that
Definitely.
ministry through copyright laws and those things. So in order to limit the digital pointing, in order to limit the funding that might go to that ministry, we decided that if it's a questionable ministry, if it's current and active and they're preaching a different gospel or lack of the gospel completely, then we ought not to play it. And we've kind of taken that stance, and it took us several sessions to get there.
Right, right. And so because of that, you might not see some of the songs that you've been hearing in years past. But I would also say I feel nothing missing, like since we've come to that, I've never thought, oh man, the worship is no good anymore, like it, to me, like this is great. It's incredible.
And I think it's even pushed the worship team to even further contemplate writing their own music and
They
these
have.
types of
They
things,
have.
and they have.
We sing songs that people probably don't even know that the rock worship team has written.
Yeah.
I just found these out like 2 weeks ago.
Did you really?
Yeah, well, I interviewed Lindsay with the encore, and I was like, wait a minute, this song was
So good.
it's
too.
so cool.
So
I had no
good.
idea. And I'm like, I
Yeah,
sing
people
it.
don't
It's in my
realize.
head like I know it. Could have been Chris Tomlin for all I knew, but
Yeah,
whatever.
no, it's them. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's so good.
Really cool. The other one is this comes up because as pastors, we will get a call or an email and say, I have somebody in my family who is sick. The Bible says in James 5 to call upon the elders, anoint with oil and pray, and that they would be healed. And so we wanted to dive into that scripturally, have a discussion about it, and say, what do we really understand this to mean? And do we just say yes to everybody that has that request? And so, Kurt, I'm going to have you kind of address this scenario from James 5 and kind of talk about our conclusion in that.
So I think we spent a couple of meetings talking about that and
few,
studying
yeah.
that. And one of the main concerns was does the oil have any special power? And we came to the conclusion that it doesn't. And I looked at it more of like it's being obedient to God. And in James 5:17 it says if anyone is sick, they should come to the elders and be anointed to oil and be prayed over. And so we decided that if somebody came to us, that we would do that. And it was even after we made that decision, Pastor Wes and I went up into, I think it was in, I can't remember the city.
Swartz Creek or something.
And we anointed a lady with oil, and we prayed over her, and we explained to her the oil has, well, actually, Pastor Wes explained to her that the oil has no special power, but the prayers of God have special powers. And even through, I remember you talking about it, is that you've actually seen this work.
Yeah.
That, it doesn't, it's up to God
Right,
whether
it's
he's
not a
going to.
genie lamp that if
it's
you
not.
do it this way, you will be healed. It's not like some prescription or anything.
No, and we knew that, but sometimes God will answer that prayer. But also in that scripture, it talks about, the possibility that your sickness might be because of sin,
Yeah.
and we need to bring that up. And I've done that several times, and it's been brought up is that you need to seriously look at if sin in your life is causing that sickness, and you need to confess that. But that doesn't mean that's the case.
Right.
As a person, but the other important thing about that is the elders don't go and seek the people out. The person that is sick needs to come to the elders. So I think that pretty much covers that.
That was a fantastic
That was fabulous.
I was glued the whole time.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I just want to sit back and listen.
Oh,
in my
yeah.
chair and go,
Well,
You almost brought notes up here. Like I'm
I didn't
glad
bring
you
any
didn't.
notes.
How
That was
about-
way
yeah.
better.
Scott's got
I got
notes.
all
I
the
don't got no
notes.
notes.
That was way better than
Steve
your
doesn't got
notes.
notes.
oh my, all up there.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of things I want to talk about, but not now.
No, you sure?
That's nice, Kurt.
Now's your time. All right.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to talk about and celebrate before we close with another question is just the unknowns of this year and how crazy it was. It's weird to say this sometimes, but I'm blessed to even be sitting here having a job, and that means that like financially, this church has been supported.
Yeah.
And so through it all, and I don't even know where it comes from, how it comes, and I would imagine there are people that aren't necessarily around anymore, but we don't know, man. God has just continued to bless, and we are privileged to even to be sitting here to be able to proclaim the gospel on a weekly basis, have the funds to go on the Shoreline Tour, and in the most bizarre year of ministry, I know that's the most overused term of the year, but it has been different, and we've had to adjust. So any thoughts on that from your guys' perspective before we hit the final question?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say just it has been tough, and it's been tough in every individual's lives. I mean, people have, everybody has their own story to tell out there.
Yeah.
Maybe whether they're working or not, or working, restaurants and different, in retail and things that they could do or things they couldn't. And people are certainly financially burdened. But my goodness, how thankful we are for the people to continue to just follow the Lord and giving with a cheerful heart, really, because and that's evidenced in, quite honestly, the bottom line. I mean, people are still giving and supporting the ministry to go forward, and it's just a real blessing to see that.
I think that's what drives us too. At least for me, I guess I'm sure all of us would be on the same page, as well as everyone who serves actively, every day here. That's what drives me in some way to like think and dig down in your mind as to what can we do to keep pushing and blazing and caring for and innovating. Because like people are, people trust us to lead in that direction. Like they trust, we're all in it together. Like it's not an us and them in any way. But there are different callings within the body, and people have entrusted the leadership of this church to go forward or to try to shape a vision in a difficult time. So like I don't want to be found sitting around.
Yeah.
Like if you feel called of God to support this and be an active, member of this body, then the leadership is accountable to keep fighting. Like I'm not gonna. What can we do? What can we do? We're shut down. We can't do anything. I never want, and nobody, none of you guys, nobody, I have never caught that vibe from anybody, but I don't ever want to rest in that. Like, well, just go home until things change. They may never change. So what? Then what?
Yeah.
Like, so I really appreciate people trusting us with that, but I appreciate the pressure. The fact that their faithfulness in some way puts pressure on my heart to like,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
we gotta go. Like we gotta do something.
Well, it's been an encouragement to me. Like we're not seeing people's faces,
Right.
but yet there is the financial support. Like it's tough not knowing if
Yeah.
anybody's got your back.
I know it's hard.
And you can't know that because there's no human interaction right now with things.
Yeah.
But that is one way we've been able to see that support is people just still supporting the efforts of the gospel going forward here.
Yes.
And then just being grateful for the cameras, the equipment that God has through the years provided us with, that when we face the scenario that you talked about back in March, and it encouraged you that we could just innovate and change and go right away. That's because for the last 5 years, God has provided us with an arsenal of technological equipment that a lot of other churches around here didn't have. And I never want to take that for granted. Just knowing that God provided that, knowing what was coming for us to be able to do ministry in this community, even around the world, through technology in this last year.
And I just want to add on top of that too, that, your giving, everybody's giving at this church has also helped us been able to give other people. It's not, we have a budget
Yes.
and we make ministry happen, and things are happening here from the giving in the budget, but also people during this time that lost their business or whatever, we've been able to help some of them. Everybody, no, of course not, but we always want to be a giving people because we are blessed and people give here. And so we have been able to do that. We actually had an elder meeting, I think, where we literally went through and talked about specific people. How can we give to them right now? So I want to,
And even equipment, technological equipment,
Yeah,
we gave some
yeah.
to churches, or we let churches come in and use the technology we have to help their church. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been awesome to be able to do that.
I love
right.
it.
Okay. Well, the last question is one that we probably get the most from all of us, to all of us. I would say we spent a great deal of conversation on it through our elder meetings this year, is the box, the status of the box, what is happening with that, and what does the future look like. So, Pastor West, you're the lucky one that gets to answer this, because you are the one that does the labor. You build it all. You dig the holes. It's all on you anyway. So
Most intimate.
you might as well answer that.
Yeah, we learned that with the Shoreline Tour. He did all the work.
Yeah.
Set the stage up.
That's funny. That's funny. Look, it's we're at a pause point with it. Is where we're at. It's not what I had hoped or expected. But we're going to get through it. We reached the 3 million during the pandemic, and we
Raising
went,
the 3 million.
what's that?
Raising
it. Yeah. We reached the
Right there again.
right at
point.
that time after it had happened, after the pandemic had started to happen, and we went for it. Like that was the expectation that we had, and we went for it. And throughout that season, this last 8 months or whatever it was, there have been some unexpected things. There have been some complications. There are just things that have happened. And, we're working through it right now. And I'm disappointed in some way, with that. There are many great things that have happened. And we talked this whole time about that, and I'm thankful for all that. It doesn't overshadow that, but I am disappointed. I wanted to be in by Christmas 2020. There's no chance that's happening. We're going to come to the church when we get everything clarified.
Yeah.
The only reason we haven't said exactly what it is because we still haven't pinned it down, and I don't want to tell people a story that's spin. Like, I don't want to give muddy information. So I want to say this is where we're at, this is where we're going, and this is what it's going to take, and this is why. And we have about wrestled those answers down, but we're still processing some of that to get that clarity in order to bring real information to the church. And the truth is, in the end of it all, we're going to get that thing done, and it's going to be awesome, and people are going to gather, and we're going to keep reaching this town for Jesus before and after it's done.
Yeah.
But it's going to take more than what I hoped or planned. It's going to take more money, and it's going to take a couple changes in course, and that's going to take time that I didn't want.
I mean, there's just been a lot of things changed through the years, and especially in this last year, that have just complicated things.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm happy, and I want to give as hard of numbers as we can, and we just haven't nailed that to the wall at this present moment. But that's where it's at. I'm sorry it's not done. I wish it was. It isn't. But I'm just not going to let a physical building take away the joy of the gospel. We're still seeing people get saved.
Absolutely.
It has forced us to innovate yet again. We're going to have Christmas outside 7 days out as this recording. I don't know what will happen. People will probably watch it after this point. I don't know what's going to happen. But they're calling for maybe a little snow, and it's just going to be wonderful. And it keeps you humble. It keeps you prayerful. And nothing is going to change. We're going to preach the word. We're going to preach the gospel. We're going to make disciples. Yeah. And on the side, we're going to get that thing done. It's just going to take a little longer, and sometimes it's a headache. But
sure,
that's just how it is.
And if ever there was a year to remind us that it's not about a building,
You're right.
it was probably this year, and so
No,
it's-
right, yeah.
Well, and one of
Yeah.
the things we've always said since the beginning with any tool, but especially the box, is it can never get in the way of doing ministry.
100%,
Like we can't
yeah.
put the box in front of like
of continual
we
ministry.
can't.
Yeah.
So we've never
Yeah.
cut our budget or pulled from our budget and changed the way we do ministry to make the box happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're at. Like when God provides, it'll be there.
Right.
And I will say this, it's been, we could get a loan and, we could have done that years ago and sped things up and just spend ourselves into an oblivion. We could do that and we could probably afford to pay the monthly payment, maybe. But now that this 2020 season has happened and has brought a peculiar set of circumstances,
Yeah.
it has been confirmed in my heart, and I know all of us because we've talked it to death, it is confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt that we must hold to the conviction to do things without debt, because that has been an incredible benefit
Amen.
to this body during
Right.
this time. If we
Right.
would have had a backpack of debt during this time, I don't know that we'd be having the same conversation right now.
And we've
Yeah.
seen other churches in the area and
Yes.
struggle with that because they do have.
Big time struggle. And I don't gloat for that.
No.
I am just thankful for the Lord holding us together in it, because it's hard to hold it. It's hard to hold on to that conviction. And, I'd like to just go to the bank and get it done, but not anymore. Like now I think, no, we can't be doing that. So.
And that never was a consideration.
No, it
from
wasn't.
the very
No,
beginning.
it was not.
We're all in consensus of.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
we-
that's true, Kurt.
We didn't want that.
No, we
Yep.
didn't, and I still don't.
Well, awesome. Well, I enjoyed this conversation. Hopefully it was good for everybody out there. I just want to say thank you on behalf of our team for the ministry that we get to celebrate. It is not because of the 5 of us here. It's because of everybody out there, and it definitely takes an army to make this happen. So we're grateful for that. We hope and pray for much more of the same type of thing in 2021, and we'll be praying for different opportunities and continuing to preach the gospel. And that's our goal. That's our aim. We're going to do it in. So we want to wish everybody a happy new year, and we can't wait to see your smiling faces soon, and we'll continue to serve together.